Yes, Rahul.
Vijay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rohit.
Yeah, this is the first case. This is a child, a 2-year-old child, uh, with a antenatal diagnosis of bilateral hydroureteronephrosis. So, so these are the images. These are the ultrasound images, and this is the MCU images.
Okay. So I'm provided with an ultrasound and MCU images of a newborn.
Okay.
The ultrasound images shows right and left kidney showing dilated pelvic calyceal system, and
Okay.
I can see the renal parenchyma appearing thinned out,
Mm.
and I can see the dilated pelvis, and anyway ureter is not seen in the provided images.
Okay.
So the MCU images, can I have a look at the MCU images? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It shows dilated posterior urethra, and there is a narrowing at the distal posterior urethra, and also the bladder is distended and shows multiple trabeculations, and the wall is appearing irregular, and the rest of the urethra is normal. So with the provided images, this is a case of posterior urethral valve which is obstructing the urinary outflow, causing changes in the urinary bladder wall in the form of irregularity and trabeculations, and hydronephrosis on both sides due to reflux due to the distal obstruction. So this is an emergency situation, and the findings need to be conveyed to the referring clinician, and an urgent urology referral is needed. And yes, and the definitive surgery should be planned after MDT discussion of what is that? Posterior urethral valve vulgarization, and before that, maybe the child might need suprapubic catheterization as an interim procedure.
Okay. 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 And what is the cause of this irregular appearance of the urinary bladder?
It's secondary to the obstruction to urinary outflow, which leads to trabeculations from the urinary bladder wall,
Okay.
outpouchings from the bladder wall.
Okay. And what is this thing, this narrowing or constrictions of the bladder neck?
Okay. Okay, you mean there is bladder neck hypertrophy?
Yeah, there is one. There is one more ultrasound image which you can see.
Okay. Okay, so yes. So the MCU image, the narrowing at the bladder neck is bladder neck hypertrophy. And
Okay.
in the ultrasound, I can see dilated posterior urethra and the urinary bladder. And the, what is it? Thickened bladder neck.
Okay. Okay. Good. Now we are going to second case. So this is a patient which has presented with bilateral flank pain.
Okay.
So you are provided
So,
with this is the plain KUB film, and these are the one of these IVP images. Okay.
so the plain KUB image of an adult, I can see a radiodense shadow overlapping the right renal shadow.
Okay.
That is probably a calculus in the right lower pole.
Okay.
Lower pole of right kidney, and again on the left side it's unremarkable. I cannot really appreciate any nephrolithiasis.
Okay.
And on the left side, along the course of left ureter, lower ureter, overlapping the sacral bone, I can see some radiodense shadows, which is probably lower left ureteric calculi.
Okay.
Uh, yes, from the plain KUB film, plain X-ray KUB film, I'll be suspecting nephrolithiasis on the right side and ureteric calculi on the left side. I would like to proceed with ultrasound if possible,
Okay.
or if the IVP is the next procedure that was done, I would like to have a look at them.
Okay. So these were the IVP images. That is the bladder filling images.
Okay. So, yes, I can see the lower left ureter. It's appearing a bit dilated and tortuous. And the radiodense shadows that we could see in the plain KUB film is overlapping with the dilated ureter and is probably within the ureter. And I can see a loosened area at the site of left vesicular junction, which I suppose is probably left-sided ureterocele. Um, yes, I cannot make out the right lower ureter in this image. I assume this is probably a delayed image. Due to the obstructed left system, the contrast is persisting in the left ureter. That's why maybe we are seeing the ureter in the delayed image. I would like to look at the time this film has been taken after IV contrast administration.
Okay. Any further investigation or any further thing to
Yes,
you want
I
to
would like
proceed?
to go ahead with ultrasound as a first line investigation after this.
Okay.
And in distended bladder, that will probably help us to diagnose the presence of ureterocele as well as a dilated left system with the ureter calculi. And
Okay.
the findings need to be conveyed to the referring clinician, and urology consultation may be done for dealing with the left obstructed left system.
So what are your differential diagnosis for this appearance on these images?
Mm, yes, the one is a left-sided ureterocele and obstructed left system with dilated left ureter and
Okay.
multiple ureter calculi. And other differentials here would be left vesicular junction calculus, which is causing proximally dilated left system, or it can be dilated left ureter without any obstruction, like megaureter.
Okay. So we shall proceed to the next case. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was a patient who presented with bilateral breast lumps. So these are the mammography images.
Okay. I'm provided with the mediolateral oblique and craniocaudal views of both breasts.
Okay.
Yes, I can see multiple well-defined radiodense opacities uh, in radiodense lesions involving both breasts of varying sizes. Whereas on the left side, there is a relatively large lesion. All the lesions are having very sharp borders. There are no evidence of any microcalcification or no evidence of architectural distortion. The skin, nipple areola complex are appearing normal, and axilla shows small volume lymph nodes. Um, so, with the provided image, the possibilities I'll be considering are benign breast cysts, or can be oil cysts, or can be fibroadenomas. Rarely, very rarely, malignancy is a differential. So I'd like to proceed. I'll assess a category of BIRATS 3 for these lesions, and I would like to proceed with ultrasound and clinical examination.
Okay. So these were the ultrasound images of the right breast. So this was the largest lesion of the left breast, and this is the lesion, one of the lesion of the right breast, and this is
Okay.
the lesion of the left breast.
Okay. So all the lesions appear to be solid and well defined in the ultrasound. Um, so Yes, if it is a first visit and there is no studies to um, compare. So I'll assess again category BIRATS category 3 for this lesion. Final assessment category will be 3. So short-term follow-up can be advised, or tissue diagnosis after discussing in the MDT.
Okay. 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 So we shall proceed to the next case. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was a young female who presented with bleeding per vaginum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the plain radiograph of pelvis. I can see a T-shaped radiodense structure overlapping the sacral bone. It's
Okay.
probably an intrauterine contraceptive device.
Okay.
And the patient is a young female who has presented with bleeding per vaginum. So I will be, yes, I'll get the history of insertion of intrauterine contraceptive device, and also the whether she's a paras or nulliparous female. And again, I would like to proceed with an ultrasound scan of the pelvis to look for the cause. I really can't make out any obvious abnormality in this pelvic radiograph. Okay.
This was the sagittal transvaginal ultrasound, and this was the transverse image of the same scan. Okay.
Okay. So the transvaginal ultrasound images of uterus shows the contraceptive device displaced into the myometrium, and so the contour of the uterus is appearing normal. Probably it's within the myometrium and has not gone out of the uterus.
Okay.
And this probably the reason for the bleeding per vaginum for this patient. And this finding is should be conveyed to the referring gynecologist on emergency basis, and the thing IUCD should be removed as early as possible if we can find the thread, or otherwise a surgical intervention may be required.
Okay. So Sanjeet, do we have more time?
Yeah, this is the last case.
Okay. So we shall discuss the cases briefly. Okay.
Okay.
So your diagnosis was right and approach was also very right. This is a case of posterior urethral valves. So this is bladder hypertrophy. This is bladder neck hypertrophy, and this is posterior urethral valve. Okay, which were shown on this ultrasound images. Okay.
Okay.
So this was renal calculus, and this was left uretary calculi. Sorry, and this was dilated left ureter, and calculi were seen in the ureter, and this was a mass at the vesico-ureteric junction, which was later evaluated with ultrasound and CT. Okay.
Okay. That's the only
But your-
difference I did not say.
Don't worry, but your approach was right.
Okay.
So I don't think that is going to be a problem. So again, this was a patient on surgical evaluation and further histopathology. These were bilateral fibroadenomas. Okay.
Okay.
Vijay, will you say M3 or BIRATS 3?
I think we should be saying M3 and U3.
Okay, okay. I'll learn that. I'm not. I'm so addicted to BIRATS. I never leave BIRATS behind.
Okay, so this was correctly diagnosed as IUCD, which is seen in the myometrium. Okay.
Will you use the term displacer into the myometrium, or what is the best term, Vijay?
Perforation, you can say perforation, myometrial perforation, sir.
You have to use that correct word, Vijay. You
Okay,
displace
understood.
myometrium, and you told that if the threads are available, you you ask them to pull out. Can it be pulled out simply?
Okay, we should not, right? Because it's already in the myometrium. I think surgical intervention.
Yeah.
That we don't need to decide surgical intervention and all. Don't say that if the thread is available, I will ask them to pull out. That's a wrong thing. And it's myometrial invasion. That is Anil Kumar saying. Don't use the term myometrial displacement and all that are in non-specific terms. Okay. And somebody saying like, why not M2? It is multiple fibroadenoma because M3 is probably malignant, right? And needs short-term follow-up. So I don't know much about breast. Someone else, Sabath, can you add something? Okay.
Solid lesion in the first visit is always 3, right?
Always M3 and then after biopsy, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
M3, and if it remains stable for 2 years, it becomes automatically BIRATS 2 or M2.
Okay. Somebody saying like if the fibroadenoma is large, it becomes M3. M3. Okay. So okay, Vijay, can you?
Sure. I'll show my cases. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay.
You can press F5 to.
F5, huh? Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is the first case. I'm not giving any history.
Okay. So these are the actual contrast enhanced images, contrast enhanced CT images. I can see that in right kidney, there is a large hypodense mass in the right kidney. Left kidney in these actual images appear unremarkable. There is a well-defined interface with the liver, which has been displaced entirely. And I can see some beak sign, that is the residual right kidney, which is seen medially, posteromedially. So the hypodense lesion is most likely rising from the right kidney. And I further want to look in my routine practice, sagittal and coronal images to further assess the size of the lesion and possible extrarenal extension. And there is compression of the IVC medially, and these organs have been displaced. So I just want to see the coronal and sagittal reformat and further see the urographic images to assess the lesion fully.
Okay, with the provided image, what do you think is the diagnosis or differentials at least?
With the provided images, this seems to be some right renal mass.
Okay.
This is hypoenhancing. That is, the enhancement is less than that of the normal renal parenchyma. And in my routine practice, I would see for the attenuation value of the lesion, just to rule out whether it is an angiomyolipoma, because it is appearing hypodense.
Okay. This is a right renal mass. Can you guess the age of the patient from the CT?
This is probably a young adult, and this might be a case of a renal malignancy, like Wilms tumor in a child.
Okay. Can we go to the next case?
Pardon? Yeah. So I am provided with the mammograph MLO views and craniocaudal views of a breast lesion. So there is a hyperdense lesion in the upper inner quadrant of is right breast. Sorry, I am not confident whether that is right or left.
It's usually right on this side.
This side. So this is an hyperdense lesion which is situated on the upper inner breast quadrant, and it has speculated margins, and I'm not seeing any axillary lymphadenopathy. There is no skin thickening and nipple retraction. And in my routine practice, I would proceed with the ultrasound evaluation of the lesion, and this seems to be an M4 or M4 lesion, and I would further assess the lesion with the ultrasound.
Okay.
Is this the next case?
Yes, this is the next case, third case.
Okay. So I'm provided with MLO and CC views of both breasts. I can see that the breast is heterogeneously dense, and there are multiple round to oval lesions scattered in both lungs, and the lesions have the margins which are visualized. They are smooth margins, but their margins are obscured by the fibroglandular tissue, and the distribution of the lesion demonstrate that the lesions are either cystic or soiled lesions, and I would like to take this further by doing an ultrasound of both breasts to look for the nature of the internal contents of the lesion.
Okay. With the mammogram alone, what are the differentials you'll be thinking about?
I would be thinking about the differential diagnosis, bilateral breast cysts and fibroadenomas.
Okay. So this is the next case.
Okay, so I am provided with CC and MLO views of both breast mammogram, and the patient is presented with swelling right breast with redness. I can see that there is diffuse diffuse thickening of the fibroglandular component of the right breast, along with enlarged nodes in the axilla. There is some trabecular thickening as well as thickening of the overlying skin. I cannot see any nipple retraction. So the appearance appears sinister to me, and my differential would include inflammatory breast carcinoma, and I would like to take this further by doing an ultrasound, and and specifically look in the axilla as well as in the breast parenchyma, and this could be an inflammatory breast malignancy.
Okay. Do you have any differentials for this?
I don't really have any differential diagnosis for this.
Okay. If this is a case of inflammatory breast carcinoma, how do you diagnose it?
I would further advise the MRI of the patient and contrast enhanced dynamic MRI to look for the enhancement pattern.
Okay.
And proceed with the biopsy of the or FNAC of the nodal lesions in the axilla.
Okay. Okay. Apart from node, can you biopsy any other area in the breast?
Biopsy of the skin, because there is
Yes.
a thickening, so
Okay.
that can be that can aid in the diagnosis.
Okay, we'll go to the next case.
Okay. So these are the medial MLO and CC views of both breasts. So I can I can see that these are multiple coarse calcifications or benign appearing calcifications in the retroareolar region of both breast. That
These
is
were
in the
detected on a routine screening mammogram. First routine screening mammogram of
okay.
a 60-year-old female.
Okay. So I can see there are multiple bilateral calcifications which appear to be benign in shape and morphology. And in the left breast, I can see an on the CC views, there is an asymmetric density in the outer quadrant, which I am not able to visualize on the mellow view. So I would recall the patient and correlate the finding of the mammogram with the ultrasound images to look for this breast asymmetry. There is no abnormal skin thickening, nipple retraction, no axillary lymphadenopathy.
Okay, and we shall move to the next one.
Okay.
This is also on a routine screening mammogram of an elderly 65-year-old female.
Okay. So these are the MLO and craniocaudal views of both breasts. There is scant fibroglandular tissue in both breasts. In the left breast, in the I can say that upper medial breast compartment, there are linear and lobulated densities, hyperdensities, and with obscuration of the underlying retromemory space, and there's probably infiltration of the underlying muscle. And I would like to take this further by doing an ultrasound to further characterize the lesion. And
Okay.
any history, or this is just a single image?
Yes, single image. Actually, the patient is a middle-aged
Okay.
male presenting with generalized weakness and fatigability. After initial running series of tests, he was advised CT angiogram of abdomen.
Okay. So these are the coronal MIP images of angiogram of both kidneys. I can see that there are intrarenal dilated vessels which are seen in the renal parenchyma. I can see one on the right side and multiple on the left side. So my differential would include vasculitis like polyarteritis nodosa or some
So this
cause
is
of,
the last case, Rohit.
pardon?
This will be the last case.
Okay. So because I can see that multiple intrarenal aneurysms are there, and so I think vasculitis or some a condition like polyarthritis nodosa these are my two differentials, and I would like to take this further by doing an DSA and looking for the lesions. That is for therapeutic intervention also. So on the DSA also, I can see that multiple small aneurysmal intrarenal arterial dilatations are there. So my diagnosis is polyarthritis nodosa.
Okay, so what do you do next?
I would refer the patient for the intervention radiology, and I think coiling or some embolization of the multiple aneurysm can be done.
Okay, so we'll wind up the cases. Yes, Rohit, about this last case, and this is a case of polyarthritis nodosa. And in the CT image, coronal nip image, there you can see you rightly picked up multiple intrarenal aneurysms. But at this point, you'll have to say that you will confirm the finding comparing with the plain images also, because I've provided only the contrast image for you.
Okay.
So you have to rule out that this is this is not a calculi, right?
Okay.
So you just have to say that I'll have a look at the plain film images just to confirm that these are dilated intrarenal vessels. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
apart from that, you reach the diagnosis really fast, and this is a case of polyarthritis nodosa, and you rightly suggested the DSA as the next investigation.
Okay.
And
Why you were reluctant to say the word aneurysm, Rohit?
Yeah, aneurysm. I think if there is a single lesion involving the large vessels, these are multiple intrarenal dilatations, so which are better seen.
So I don't know. I'm asking you. But we have to use the term multiple intrarenal dilatations or multiple intrarenal aneurysms, because I don't know.
Oh,
I think
I'm not very sure. I just have to check actually that whether we
it's given aneurysms only, multiple intrarenal aneurysms involving the interlobar and arcuate vessels. That is the
So
characteristic
if
appearance.
that is the case, then you have to use that correct terminology,
Yes,
Rohit.
yes.
Okay.
Because that is a less loading term and non-specific term.
Okay.
Because if you know that it's a PAN, then hit it for a 6 by using all that words that the examiner likes.
Okay.
And also about the next after DSA, do we have IR has any role in this, or it's usually steroids, right? We don't do any coiling for PAN, right?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'll read up, but I think for polyarthritis nodosa, you have to give steroids.
I think it's steroids. I think steroids
Yeah,
to refer to
you
that.
don't do coiling as far as I know, but anyway, I'll read up. Okay.
Okay.
And about the previous case, yes, and this is, you rightly picked up the finding. There is a ill-defined radiodense lesion in the left breast. It's in the involving the inner quadrant and the deep region, just superficial to the muscle. But I think you should not say about the muscle infiltration in the mammogram.
Okay. But retromemory space is obliterated, so possible muscle infiltration. I don't know.
Yes. Possible muscle infiltration. It's possible, but okay. You use the word possible, right? I really didn't follow that. Okay. So there is the retroareolar loosened area is occupied by this lesion. So you are suspecting an malignancy in this region. So you will go ahead with ultrasound, and if the lesion cannot be picked up in ultrasound, you have to go ahead with MR mammogram. Okay. And then plan biopsy after referring to the breast clinic. Sanij, I have one doubt, like whether you should go ahead with biopsy, and then if the malignancy is proved, you refer to breast clinic, or you do that before proving?
In UK?
Yeah.
Because I don't have a breast clinic here in my hospital.
Okay. Okay, so, and that part also we'll clarify, we'll read up. And again, in this case, yes, you rightly picked up the finding. These are all benign calcification. And this is on the left side, there is some asymmetry, but it is actually not seen in the MLO view. So I think, I mean, it's not, ultrasound is not needed. Okay.
Okay.
So what is expected here is this benign calcification, and it does not need any recall, and the patient needs only annual surveillance. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And about this case, swelling right breast with redness. Yes, the first differential that you said, you picked up all the findings correctly. That is, there is skin thickening, there is diffuse increased density with trabecular thickening on the right side, and multiple enlarged lymph nodes are seen. Okay, so with these findings and with the clinical presentation of swelling and redness, you will be thinking about inflammatory carcinoma.
Okay.
And of course, the differentials include inflammatory or infective mastitis.
Okay.
Okay, it's not always carcinoma.
Yeah.
Even the infective and inflammatory mastitis, especially in lactating females, this is a typical appearance. So that you can easily rule out with clinical examination and the rest of the lab parameters.
Okay.
So of course, keep inflammatory carcinoma as a differential diagnosis. Okay. So one more question here. It's, if the appearance is bilateral, what are the differentials that you'll be thinking of?
Then we were thinking of things like congestive cardiac failure, which can lead to such appearance, or
Yes, very good.
yeah, or while I can't think of anything else in this.
Yes, it's
Maybe
congestive cardiac failure or renal failure, then
yeah.
scleroderma. All these conditions comes as differentials. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Then, yes, this is you picked up the findings, and also the differentials were good. And like when you are asked about the differentials, first you said cyst, right? Benign or oil, benign simple cyst or oil cyst. Then again you said fibroadenomas.
Yeah.
And for any well-defined lesion, actually in the last differential, it should be carcinoma. Okay.
Okay.
So you have to follow up. That is why we give BIRATS 3 for any well-defined lesion in the first visit.
Yeah.
If you prove the stability over time, or if you prove with tissue diagnosis, you can categorize it as 2 and can definitely say that it is benign. Because even with very well-defined lesion with very well circumscribed borders, it's still 1 to 1.5% there is chance of malignancy.
Okay.
Okay, this is a typical case that you said really well. And about this, yes, here, okay, you rightly said that this is a single axial image, axial CT scan of abdomen at the level of kidneys in the post-contrast phase. And also the oral contrast is also there. You have to mention that oral contrast is also given to the patient. Okay.
Yeah. Oral and IV.
Yes, correct. And again, the findings are very, you picked up all the findings that right kidney is enlarged, there is a hypodense, hypoenhancing mass with displacement of liver, IVC, no obvious infiltration of adjacent structures.
Okay.
And one thing I would like to ask you is, you said that left kidney is unremarkable. Do you want to look again?
Yeah. In retrospect, I can see that there is small hypodensity.
Yes.
So
This is a 4-year-old male. What do you think is the differential here? You came to the correct diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah.
You said that without prompting, but still.
Something like nephroblastoma-matosis.
Yes. This is nephroblastoma-matosis.
Okay.
You can see the Wilms tumor on the right side and a small nest on the left side also. So this is a case of nephroblastoma-matosis. Okay, bilateral Wilms. That is a correct diagnosis here. So apart from that, yes, this case is good. Okay, anything to add on, Sanish?
Nothing, excellent. Good, good,
Thanks.
excellent. Okay.
So I'll stop sharing, right?
Hi, Wasif. Hello.
Yes, Sunny. Hi.
Hi.
I'll share my screen. All right. Can you request the remote control?
No problem. Yeah, I will ask. Okay.
Another thing I wanted to ask is how long is each session? How many minutes?
I'll stop at 12:30, 12 hours, 12 minutes and 30 seconds. Like that will be the last case.
All right, fine. So, okay, we'll start now. You can take the remote control. This is your first case.
1 second. Okay, I'm starting the timer. So I've been given mammogram. This is a craniocaudal mammogram, and there are medial lateral oblique mammograms also. So
Yes. This patient presented with a lump in the left axillary region and recurrent pain. She's had 3 times pain over the past 3 months.
okay, lump in the left
same region.
axillary region.
Yeah.
So I'm comparing the both views. Like this is a breast is heterogeneously dense, so that will reduce the sensitivity of the imaging. So I can see there is a asymmetrical density here. So I'm comparing it with the MLO views. There is some fatty tissue at the axillary region, and there are some lymph nodes with a fatty hilum. And I can also see there is a asymmetrical density at the upper half of the breast.
I think that is acceptable. That is just appearing a little heterogeneous, but the patient's region of complaint is the axilla.
Okay, so so that is a left breast.
Yeah, asymmetric.
So this one actually this is a fat benign lesion, and there is some density seen within it. Can be a fibrogranular density that accelerate tail of Spence, and this looking like fatty hilum. I'll do a ultrasound correlation also, and we'll also see the previous images. So it looks like it's a variant.
Yeah, you said it could be axillary tail. Any other characteristic terminology that you would use for this, given the patient's complaint?
It's a accessory breast tissue in the axilla. With I can see the fiber.
So this is your next case. You can take the control.
Okay, I'm already controlling. So this is craniocaudal and medial lateral oblique views of mammogram. Breast is relatively fatty, the type 1, and I can see, and I'm looking at the other breast, that left breast, where I can see a well-defined mass with large macro calcifications like popcorn-like calcifications, which are benign appearing calcifications. I'm looking for any other lesions, and I'm comparing it with the mediolateral oblique view also. The axillary region is also fine. So this is a Bairad's, probably Bairad's category, sorry, M2 lesion. So I'll compare it to the previous images to check for the stability. If it is
there
more,
are no previous images. The patient just presented with a palpable mass. So 60-year-old female patient.
So with the available a single image with this type of calcifications is most probably benign M2 lesion, like calcification in a fibroadenoma or a fibroadenolipoma, so or a hamartoma. So I'll ask for a routine follow-up of this patient.
So this is a 50-year-old man who came to the clinic after feeling a lump in his right breast, which only started about 4 to 5 months. You can take it.
So this is a mammogram of a male breast who's 50-year-old with a breast lump. So I'm looking at the medial lateral oblique and craniocaudal views of the right breast, where I can see there is a mass in the right breast at the outer and upper quadrant of the breast with the fat plane with the pectoralis muscle is also I'm not well seen. I can also see some thickening of the skin also. So this is definitely a malignant or M5 lesion which needs biopsy and further evaluation. And in the other breast, left breast, I can see again a well-defined small mass with, well, that's a nipple here. This is a nipple and there is a lesion here, and I'm not seeing that lesion in the craniocaudal view. So this I will look in the ultrasound if possible, and this can be a lymph node also. So and this patient needs further evaluation and biopsy of the lesion on the right breast. And
So what would you do first? You want to do biopsy or ultrasound?
if it is usually I will do an ultrasound, and if the lesion is well seen in the ultrasound, an ultrasound guided biopsy is easily available and easily done. So that is
So this is the ultrasound. The first 4 images are of the right breast, and then you have the left breast.
okay. I'm looking at the left breast, the suspicious lesion, which was termed M5, which is hypoechoic with measuring 24 by 19 millimeter, and there is some transfacial, or there is some macro lobulations. And on color Doppler, there is increased vascularity within the lesion, which is also worrisome. So this is and this is other lesion.
No, this is still the same lesion in a different plane.
That is causing some desmoplastic reaction and irregular borders. So these are all signs of malignancy, and so this again confirms my mammographic diagnosis of M5 lesion, which needs biopsy. Since it is easily seen in ultrasound, I will suggest an ultrasound guided biopsy. And the other lesion in the that was
you can skip this lesion. You can. This is the other lesion on the other breast.
Okay, this is other lesion in the breast, other breast that is also marked in the superior aspect. That's also hypoechoic, well-defined lesion, 7 by 4 millimeter, with some macro lobulations. This is also suspicious, which also need further evaluation with biopsy and.
Biopsy of both these lesions were done, and the histopathology came back as inflammatory process. So what would you do next?
So if it is an inflammatory process, then I will be discussing it with the referring clinician and arranging for a antibiotic therapy for a period and re-evaluating after the therapy.
Antibiotic therapy showed no response.
Then definitely this needs to come out like surgery, excision biopsies to be needed. So this is a single MLO view of a breast. I can see the breast is having scattered fibrogranular densities, a type 2 breast, type 3 breast, and there is a mass at the upper part of the breast, well-defined round lesion that is situated posteriorly. And in my usual practice, I'll compare the craniocaudal view also to locate the proper quadrant. And I'm looking at the other areas. The skin is mildly thickened, and then the nipple is normal, and subareolar region is also normal. And I can see a axillary lymph node also. So in my usual practice, if there are any previous images available, I will compare. And
this is a 60-year-old female patient who palpated the lump on her self-breast examination and presented for the first time. No previous images available.
Okay, then considering the age and a lesion and the first lesion, this will be categorized as suspicious lesion like M4 and need especially having a axillary lymph node. So I will do a triple assessment with the breast ultrasound, and okay. So the breast ultrasound of the left breast showing a superficial lesion that is in the subcutaneous, immediate subcutaneous plane, in the subcutaneous fat, which is well defined round, hypoechoic. So this is not in the fibroglandular region, and she's a 60-year-old. Usually the fibroglandular tissue will be involuted. So still it is a suspicious lesion, which needs, even though there are no desmoplastic reaction, or in a 60-year-old patient in my hospital, they will definitely do a biopsy to confirm that it's a benign unless otherwise proved. So
The biopsy for this patient was done and it came back as a triple negative malignancy CA breast. What would your next recommendation be for this patient?
yeah, this triple negative malignancy are ER negative and HER2 negative and PR negative. So they are very aggressive and they are very difficult to treat and will be metastasizing very early. So this patient is to be discussed in the MDT and arrange for a staging CT chest, abdomen, and pelvis. And also I'll arrange for a bone scan if possible to look for any bone metastasis. And
in your institution, is it routine to do staging CT and bone scan for every patient diagnosed with breast cancer?
I don't have a breast clinic here, but I just told if it's a malignancy, we need to do at least a staging scan. A bone scan is, I'm not sure, but this patient at least need a.
Is there a criteria, or you do it for every patient with breast cancer diagnosis?
I told you I don't have a breast MDT here.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Fine.
yeah, I used to see there is a breast MDT. I used to see at least they are starting with staging CT, because then only they can plan the treatment, because it is a stage. If it is a stage 4, the planning management is different. If this patient has a lung metastasis or a brain metastasis, then the treatment is different. Yeah, I've seen all the cases.
I guess the question is how high is the probability of a lung cancer in this patient? Lung metastasis or a brain metastasis in this patient?
It's a triple negative. Triple negative
for this particular, yeah.
For the triple negative, it is high. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next case.
So this may be my last case. So these are the craniocaudal and MLO views of right breast. I can see there is a asymmetric. The breast is heterogeneously dense, with which will reduce the sensitivity of examination. I can see there is a asymmetry of the breast involving the inferior and outer quadrant of the right breast. That is that lower outer quadrant of the breast, which is I'm not seeing a definite mass, but it's a architectural distortion and some. In my usual practice, I will magnify the images to see whether there are any microcalcifications. And this patient needs sport compression views for further evaluation and comparison to the previous mammogram.
No previous.
So this is time up.
Okay. So your final diagnosis for this one?
This is actually Beirat's, sorry, M4 lesion, which needs further characterization by looking at the ultrasound or MRI.
Okay. Actually, I tried to do it fast because I wanted to show more cases, but unfortunately, we just ran out of time. I don't know how. Okay, we'll go back to the first case. This is your first case. So this patient has very typical findings of an accessory breast, which is typified by 3 times pain in 3 months. So she is having premenstrual tenderness involving this lumpy region in the axilla. So we can do an ultrasound which would show just fatty tissue, and it would not be helpful. So they did an MRI in this case, and the MRI clearly showed it to be a breast, basically an accessory breast. So I think the key was to catch the history and categorize it as an accessory breast. This one, these are popcorn calcifications, which are characteristic for involuting fibroadenoma, generally seen in postmenopausal females. And this is characteristic benign. You don't need to do any other thing for this, especially no biopsy or anything. So this male patient, he presented with breast masses in bilateral breast, and the mammography features are very characteristic for a malignancy, as in the masses dense, large, ill-defined margins, and infiltrating the adjacent breast parenchyma. The other lesion in the contralateral breast appears fairly well defined, and on the CC view, it is kind of overlapping with the nipple, but it's a separate discrete mass. On the ultrasound, again, you see this rounded mass with angular margins, and these are hypoechoic strands which are infiltrating the adjacent breast. This was inflammatory, so these are more likely to be edematous, this thickening and fat standing in the adjacent breast. So this is Rosai-Dorfman disease. So some inflammatory, it's a rare inflammatory condition actually, where you have this appearance which can mimic a malignancy both clinically and radiologically. It can be seen in both men and women, and there are no good features to distinguish it from a malignancy, and mostly a biopsy will be done. But
What is
generally,
the
when you
disease?
have
What is the
a
diagnosis
discordance
called?
between
I
radiology
didn't
and
get the name.
pathology, it's a very difficult scenario. Are you getting any disturbance?
Actually, what was the name you told?
Hello?
The diagnosis? Okay.
Yeah, so you can hear me, right?
Yeah, Rosai-Dorfman.
Yeah, Rosai-Dorfman disease. So when you have this discordance and you see clear microcalcifications, or you see a B5 lesion, in that scenario, you need to repeat the biopsy. You cannot depend on the histopathological diagnosis. If it's B5,
So you told that
if,
this Rosai-Dorfman comes in both females and male.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. So as I was saying, so if there's discordance between radiology and pathology, radiology is generally superior. You need to repeat the repeat the biopsy. But in this case, where it's a lower grade malignancy, I mean B4 or B3 appearing, and retrospectively you can see maybe this could be an inflammatory process. So in that case, you can say, okay, fine, give like treatment and see if it resolves. If it doesn't resolve, again you have to do biopsy.
And you ask about some treatment. What will you do and what is the answer?
Yeah. So treatment is with steroids, or not with antibiotics. You said antibiotics, I think. Steroids or anti-inflammatory, basically. Hello.
Yes. I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm losing my audio in the middle. I don't know how. So this one, because it is a new nodule in a 60-year-old female, you need to proceed with further evaluation, ultrasound as well as biopsy. When you say you need to do ultrasound, don't just say ultrasound of the breast. Say ultrasound of the breast and the axilla, and also biopsy of the breast and the axillary lymph node. They tend to do everything as far as UK is concerned, and they like to hear it separately. Secondly, they do biopsy for all lesions in above 25 years old. So if the patient is about 25 years old and if it's a benign looking lesion like this, they will still do a biopsy because they don't want to take the risk in the UK by calling it a clear-cut fibroadenoma. So the criteria for not doing a biopsy is the patient should be less than 25 years old with a mass which is less than 25 mm. Or in an elderly patient, the mass should have popcorn calcifications, which we saw in the first case. So in that case, we'll not do a biopsy. And there are other few lesions which are characteristically benign, like lipoma or hematoma or fat necrosis, galactoseals. These fluid or fat density lesions will not do biopsy. But any solid looking lesion, even if it's like clear B2, but the patient is more than 25 years old, or the size of the lesion is more than 25 mm, you proceed to do biopsy. So in this case, they also did an MRI. Dr. Sanish, are you muting your mic or?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, because I often have problems with my audio system. So if I don't get any feedback from you, I'll be thinking whether I lost the mic or something.
Yeah, actually, make you, yeah, just
Yeah,
wanted
so
to.
just keep your mic on.
Hmm.
So I hope that was clear. So in this patient, this came back to be a triple negative breast cancer where you have uh, a lack of receptors for estrogen, progesterone, and HER2 protein, and they can mimic fibroadenomas, but they generally have more roundness as compared to fibroadenomas. MRIs will show the typical enhancing pattern of a malignant breast lesion. Regarding the staging, they don't do staging for every breast cancer in UK.
Hmm.
So they have indication for CT staging.
Hmm.
That is if the lesion is large, T3 or T4.
Hmm.
Secondly, if they have 4 or more than 4 abnormal axillary lymph nodes. So they also biopsy the lymph nodes, right? So if they have disease within the axillary lymph nodes, which are more than 4. And third is if the patient has suspicious systemic symptoms.
Hmm.
So even though they biopsy every lesion, regardless if it's clear fibroadenoma or not,
Hmm.
staging they are selective. Staging, they don't want to waste the resources by doing unnecessary CT staging and bone scan staging for every patient.
Hmm.
So that is what a breast radiologist from UK told me once.
Hmm.
And if it's inflammatory breast cancer, then for staging you use PET CT.
Hmm. For inflammatory breast cancer.
Yeah, for inflammatory breast cancer, they use PET CT as staging. This one is
Yeah, breast in the breast appearance, right? Yeah.
yeah. This one is the mass over here.
Now I got.
Yeah. I think because the time was getting over and we were in a sort of a hurry, you got a little confused.
Yeah.
But this is one of the lesions that you do not biopsy. It's a very characteristic appearing mass diagnostic for a hematoma.
Fibroadenolipoma or hematoma. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When I was seeing it sitting back, then I can see it. I was leaning towards them.
Yeah. If you're too zoomed in, you will not see it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. 1 second. Can you see this?
Yes.
Can you see this?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a frontal abdominal radiograph of an elderly female patient who is a known case of diabetes mellitus, and she presented with generalized unwell status. I can see that there's a thin lucent line in the pelvic region, which is dome shaped, and it is likely outlining the bladder. I would proceed to do a full pelvic view for this patient. If available, can I see it?
Yeah.
So in this image, I can see that there's a thin lucent line which is clearly outlining the entire circumference of the bladder. This is concerning for air within the bladder wall, and given the history of diabetes mellitus, I'm concerned that this patient might have emphysematous cystitis. I would look to see if the patient has raised inflammatory markers like fever and other blood tests of normal. Also, I can see a lobulated calcific shadow, which is just overlying the blade of the sacrum, left side. And this could be an obstructive calculus within the left ureter. Also, I can see increased lucency overlying the left renal fossa. And there are some surgical clefts in the epigastric region on the left side, which could be a previous surgery like a sleeve gastrectomy. So I would proceed to do a CT scan of this patient just to
This is the
evaluate.
next case. This is the next case.
This is a frontal abdominal radiograph of a male patient, and just looking at the image, I can see that there's a calcific density which is fairly well defined, and it is seen in the right iliac fossa towards the midline. If the patient has presented with right iliac fossa pain and tenderness, this could represent an appendiculite. If this patient is presenting with loin pain and any pelvic or urinary symptoms, this could represent vesicoureteric junction calculus. So for this is a female patient actually. It is also if the patient is not presenting with any acute symptoms and if there's an incidental finding, this could represent a calcification within the adnexa. And given the appearance, it appears to be tooth-like. So it could be a mature cystic, a calcification within a mature dermoid.
What will you do now?
I would proceed to do an ultrasound pelvis for this patient.
The ultrasound is not available.
MRI would also be helpful in further characterizing these.
MRI needs a long waiting list, so it's not available.
CT with contrast.
Okay. So do you need remote control or shall I scroll?
Yeah, you can scroll.
You
So
can,
I'm provided with
you can tell me where to stop. Okay.
Okay, so I'm provided with a CCT abdomen study of the same patient. These are portovenous axial images. Just scrolling from top to bottom, I'm looking at the kidneys, which are both normal. There's no hydronephrosis. Looking at the right iliac fossa, there is some fluid within the right iliac fossa, and there is a hernia, which might be a surgical stroma of some kind.
Yeah, there was a bubble surgery. That disregard that. There was a surgery.
Okay. Okay. Within the pelvis, in the pouch of Douglas, there is a large, fairly well-defined cystic structure which shows peripheral enhancement. Can we just stop at that image of the pouch of Douglas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that enough?
So yeah. So there is fat fluid leveling within the lesion, and also within the lower cuts, I saw some fat density, I think. Okay, so there's no fat fluid leveling, but there are fatty components within this lesion, within the cystic lesion, and there's a large, well-defined calcification, which is corresponding to the calcification we saw on the pain phlegm, which represents the tooth. So the overall features are in keeping, or rather diagnostic of a dermoid. If this patient is having any pelvic pain or symptoms related to the mass effect of the dermoid, then a surgical consultation can be advised for removal of this mass. 70-year-old male patient who presented with right hip pain. So this is a frontal pelvic radiograph of an elderly male patient who presented with right hip pain. I can see that there are a number of bony abnormalities in this patient. In addition, there are multiple tiny linear radioopacity projected over the region of the prostate, which could be a chemotherapeutic agent for treatment of prostatic carcinoma. The visualized bones show a diffusely abnormal density with multiple patchy or geographic sclerotic areas, most notably in the proximal femurs bilaterally. Since this patient presented with right hip pain, I'm just examining the right hip region more closely. I'm not able to see any pathological fractures. There are degenerative changes with loss of joint space, particularly in the inferolateral aspect of the right hip joint, and there is some sclerosis. Overall, these are keeping with age-related degenerative changes, or might be radiotherapy related. So in conclusion, this patient is likely under treatment for prostatic cancer, and there is evidence of diffuse metastatic bony disease. So for this patient, I would evaluate all the previous available images. also correlate with any available medical or surgical history
So
regarding
you
what
told
procedure.
these are chemotherapeutic agents or something?
Yeah, I'm forgetting the name. Some therapy.
Is
I
it,
I didn't
okay. Okay.
radio brachytherapy. Yeah,
Yes, brachytherapy.
brachytherapy.
So this patient presented with abdominal pain.
Okay.
It's a male patient, 30-year-old.
Okay. 30-year-old male patient who presented with acute onset abdominal pain.
Not acute
I'm
onset.
provide.
Abdominal
Sorry. Okay, with long-standing abdominal pain. I'm provided with the CT axial cuts, venous phase images. I'm looking at the left kidney and I can see a few non-enhancing areas within the left kidney, but more notably, there are multiple enlarged enhancing lymph nodes seen in the common iliac region. And also within the right inguinal canal, there's a large, well-defined oval-shaped, peripherally enhancing heterogeneous mass lesion, which is seen oriented in a transverse plane. This could represent malignant transformation or malignant disease within an undescended testicle. I would look to see if the both testicles are in place. Also, ask for any known history of undescended testicle. Uh, Furthermore, there is retroperitoneal lymphadenopathy in this patient. Just going back to see the left kidney, uh, there are non-enhancing cystic lesions which just represent cortical cysts. So I would, in my usual practice, evaluate the study in more detail in all planes to see if there are any other metastatic lesion, also any other lymphadenopathy. I would correlate. I would convey my findings to the referring physician. This is a case of malignant disease or malignant mass within the undescended right testicle. This patient would need a complete metastatic workup along with biopsy of this lesion and further management and MDT discussion. So referred for further investigation with MRI for abnormality detected on ultrasound 40-year-old female.
So which sequence you need?
I would start with axial T2. So this is a 40-year-old female patient who had a previous abnormality on ultrasound with MRI done for further evaluation. These are the axial T2 weighted images going caudocranially. I'm looking at the uterus and the adnexal regions. So I can see that in the left adnexal region, there is a fairly large, well-defined, it is the left ovary which is enlarged, and it is not showing any small cyst or a follicular cyst rather. It is appearing hypointense. Can I also see the T1 weighted image? The corresponding T1 weighted image shows the left ovary to be intermediate signal intensity, intermediate to high signal intensity, and the T2 fat sat. Can I also see the T2 fat sat?
It's a contrast.
Okay, sorry.
T1 fats.
All right. So T1 fat sat with contrast shows mild heterogeneous enhancement, or rather very minimal to no enhancement of the ovary because it was already hyper to intermediate intensity on T1. Sorry, there is some enhancement. So, 40-year-old female who is otherwise asymptomatic and she is presented with an enlarged left ovary which is hypointense on T2 and intermediate intensity on T1, fairly well enhancing. This is likely to represent a mass lesion within the ovary of a low cellularity or a fibrous matrix. And I would think of an ovarian fibroma as my first differential over here. There are no cystic areas or uh, the capsule is well preserved. There's no infiltration of the adjacent structures. There's no ascites. So this is likely a benign to a low grade malignant lesion of the left ovary.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, your time is up.
this-
So
okay.
we will discuss it. So you did well. You got almost 7+ in all the cases, or maybe in some cases 8. So it was excellent. So it was a in ultrasound it was a hypoechoic solid mass, and in the MRI it is T1 hypoindents and also T2, as you told, hypo to isoindents and heterogeneous enhancement. So as you told, it is a fibroma. This is a characteristic of fibroma, ovarian fibroma. Then they may ask you something about Meek syndrome and all. Sometimes that you have to know
Diffusion
what is Meek syndrome, like ascites or pleural effusion. It's pleural effusion, right? So here everything was correct, and there was an undescended testis on the left side also. That only you missed here.
Okay.
You can see it. All the, even though the undescended testis having the other testis also will be abnormal, even if it is in the normal position. There are some genetic abnormalities that is more prone for malignant changes and all. Can be seminoma or something else. And you correctly picked up the metastasis, a metastatic lymph node or the lymph node spread. And also you told that you look at the liver, you look at the lungs and all, and staging. So this one also you correctly picked up. It is just a story case, like brachytherapy clips with multiple sclerotic lesions, disseminated sclerotic lesions in the pelvis. So it's a prostate malignancy with radiotherapy, brachytherapy clips, and brachytherapy seeds projected over the excited position of the prostate and multiple. And you also told about the degenerative changes in the and osteophytes formation in the both hip joints, correct? And this one you suddenly told that it's a male patient. I don't know where do you go.
I could not see the breast shadows. I tried to look for the young female probably.
Okay. So I was shocked because I didn't say you that it's a male patient, but you.
Yeah.
That's why I showed you this image. Then you.
I was being over smart.
Yeah. Actually, they may not show you this one. Okay. So that was the only mistake. That's why you got carried away with appendicolith and all. But it's a typical shape of a tooth. Can you see that? Yeah, that's the enamel, typical shape of a tooth. So the otherwise it was fine, like the fat component, the fluid component, and this was a case of ulcerative colitis with post surgery. That was not needed. And this one, that is a starter case. They will show you a starter case to warm up. Then that you had to hit it for a 6, and you did it well. And that is a emphysematosis status. You told everything correctly. And Wasif, Nigel has got no volunteer to examine him. You told that you have some more cases. Can you show him 3 cases?
I can. Okay. I'll show him.
You told that I can also show 3 cases.
Yeah, I have.
You can show 3
I have
cases.
cases, but I want to show starter cases. Okay, I'll show him one starter case, and okay, fine.
Okay, maybe you can show 3 cases and I can show 3 cases.
Fine, no problem.
Or if you are comfortable, you can show, no problem. Nikhil, I will ask him to unmute.
Hello.
Hi, Nikhil.
Hello, hi, Nikhil.
Hi. Am I audible?
Yeah. So I'll keep it as 6 minutes.
Is this the case? Should I start?
Yeah, this is your case.
I can start.
This is okay. This is a frontal radiograph of hysterosalpingogram. It shows that contrast is filling the uterine cavity with some filling defect in the center and right side of the uterine cavity. The left fallopian tube canal is well opacified and shows spill on the left side. On the right side, from the cornea onwards, there is non-visualization of the fallopian tube. So these filling defects in the uterine cavity could be due to Scheinke formation, which, and there could be corneal block, so it is not seen on right side. So this may be a case of Asherman syndrome. I would like to ask any previous history of any uterine procedure like DNC, and will correlate with the clinical history and inform the findings to the referring physician and ask for.
Do you know any other causes which can lead to Asherman syndrome?
Infection, endometritis, uterine infection can be.
Any particular infection?
Maybe I'm not getting the name right now.
Okay.
Gonorrhea.
This is your next case.
This is a 15-year-old female with acute abdominal pain.
I'll give you the remote control.
Should
Yeah,
I
you can
request
take
for
the
it
remote control.
or
I already gave you. Yeah,
Okay.
you're controlling.
should I start from this? So this is
You can start from
25
either
year.
the top or the bottom. Just scroll to the top.
25-year-old female patient who presented with acute abdominal pain. So this is T2 weighted image which shows a well-defined heterogeneous intensity cystic lesion in the pelvis, which is anterior to the uterus. It has a mixed signal intensities. Some of the contents are hyper intense and some are intermediate. So this could be related to blood products. I would ask to know the clinical history regarding the last menstrual period, or I will correlate it with the urine pregnancy test or beta HCG to rule out any ectopic pregnancy. And
The patient is actually
research.
15 years old. She is
Sorry.
she's a virgin patient.
So I will have a look on other images also. This is coronal T1 image. So it has some T1 hyperintense as well as contents also. So this there is some hemorrhagic component in this lesion. So I'm trying to find out.
So just one
It is
second.
related to the uterus is.
Okay, so you can scroll the axial T1 first. You can scroll this.
I'm trying to find out the origin of the lesion.
Yeah.
So to the left side of the midline. So on T1 there is a dependent hypointense component, non-dependent hyperintense component, and to confirm whether it is getting suppressed on star. So I'm looking for this is the SAG.
Take the axial. Take the axial.
So this
take that.
SAG also
Yes.
the non. So this non-dependent T1 hyperintense content is getting suppressed on Easter. So this is probably
This
a
is
fat
T1
fluid
fat
level.
SPAT-SAT post contrast.
The component which is looking bright on T1 T
Yes.
contrast image is looking dark on fat contrast.
Mhm.
So this is fat fluid level. So this could be a dermoid, a large
Okay.
dermoid.
Okay.
So, as this is of very large size and it has a risk of torsion or rupture, so I would immediately inform the findings to the referring doctor and ask for urgent referral to gynecology because it needs surgical excision.
There is risk of torsion.
Yeah, because of very large size.
Yes. Why do you think the patient is in pain now?
Or otherwise it is already undergone torsion, so that would be the cause of pain.
This can be the last case. Okay.
You want me to show another case, or that's it?
It's up to you. Then
Okay. Hold on.
if you can show,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay. So I'll just show a simple case then.
Okay.
Okay. You can take the mask.
This is a frontal radiograph showing probably this is a cystogram image, which is showing partially filled bladder. And probably this is a female patient. There is a small opacity just above the level of bladder on left side. I will compare this with the control film. I will see the oblique views also. See the oblique view. There is no if this is the voiding film, then there is no vesico-uretic reflux seen on this. This is the lateral film. On lateral film, there is a contrast filling into the vagina. So this is a vesico-vaginal fistula. So I will
How
convey
do you
the
think?
findings.
How do you think this patient presented?
She would have presented with incontinence of urine, continuous dribbling through the vagina.
Yes, continuous rippling rather than incontinence. Okay. Yeah. So this was vesicovaginal fistula, and the other history of this patient was not given. And the key is just to like see the entire study or all the given images before commenting. Over here, I think once you saw the axial fat separate images, you got the diagnosis. But the patient is presenting right now with abdominal pain. So you should always correlate the history when you're giving the final diagnosis. Over here, you can see the ovary. This is the right ovarian stroma, and this is the mass, and it has fat fluid level. It has we can see the fat because it is being suppressed on the fat suppressed images, also on stir, I believe. Yeah, here you can see, but it's difficult to see. It's just focusing on the axial images. On the post-contrast images, there's no enhancement of the ovary. This is the ovary which is not showing any enhancement. So this is in keeping with torsion. This is the pedicle, and it's just thickened and completely tossed. Another incidental finding in this patient is the left ovary. So again, you can see the left ovarian follicles, and there is a mass in the left ovary, which is again hyperintense on T1 and showing fat suppression on T1 fat sat. So there's another dermoid in the left ovary as well, but the rest of the left ovary is enhancing on post-contrast images, so there's no torsion over here. This one, yes, you got the diagnosis. This is Asherman syndrome. These are Schnitzia. These can be described as filling defects within the uterus. And like you said, there's blockage on the right side, and there is peritoneal spillage only from the left side. So these patients generally will present with infertility, and they'll have history of either dilatation, curettage. The other causes can be infection, like you said, most notably tuberculosis. And even like past history of pregnancy sometimes, and other surgery could give you Asherman syndrome as a follow-up sequelae. Okay. So I'll just stop this here.
So Nikhil, do you want to see 3 more cases or?
Yeah. We can-
Okay. 1 second. Thank you, Vasif.
Okay.
Can you see this?
The 3-month history of abdominal discomfort and distension, recent history of immaturity, female patient.
Okay, I'll scroll it for you. Which sequence you need?
Okay. This is a T1 sequence.
Which you
Exil
need?
T1.
Which you need T1?
No, the one you opened. The
T2.
first
Okay.
one, that was
Okay.
actually
Okay. I'll scroll for you. You can tell
Okay.
where to stop.
Exil T1. Can you scroll it?
Yeah, I'm scrolling.
These are axial sections of pelvis T2 T2. There is a heterogeneous intensity lesion in the pelvis slightly to the left of the midline. It is anterior to the uterus. It has thick wall and hyperintense contents. I would like to see sagittal and coronal images also to ascertain the origin of the lesion. Coronal star.
So I have a sagittal stir. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay, can you speak closer to your mic, Nikhil, because it's a bit muffled and not clear.
Now, how is it? Now? Hello? Hello?
Oh, yeah, please.
So this is a very heterogeneous lobulated lesion and it is anterior to the uterus. Anteriorly, it is abutting the lower part of the rectus muscle. It has multiple small areas of cystic degeneration. It is indenting the dome of the bladder, which is partially distended. I'm not able to make sure what is the origin of the lesion, but most likely this is a very aggressive lesion. I would like to compare it if there is any previous films available, and I will discuss this case in the gynecology MDT for considering.
So what is the epicenter of the lesion?
This is the pelvis and anterior to the uterus, and it is above the urinary bladder.
So which organ are you thinking as the epicenter of the
Well,
lesion?
it is ovary can be one possibility.
Ovary. Are you sure?
Actually, not sure. Because uterus is seen, left ovary is also seen normal. Left ovary is normal. Right ovary is also normal.
Actually, your statements are not clear. If you are speaking like this, it will be very difficult in the examination.
Okay.
Like maybe, I don't know, it's a problem with your mic, but it's not loud and clear. Because the examiner, there will be 2 examiners and the one examiner sitting behind you will be marking in the normal state. I don't know what happens in the online system, but he should also hear what you're saying. So do you want to skip this or continue this?
We can skip this. Actually, I'm not able to make the origin. Abdominal mass and weight loss, 75 years old male. So this is
So I'll scroll it for you. Okay.
contrast tunnel CT scan axial sections of abdomen. The lower chest section shows some soft tissue density lesions, pleural based. In the abdomen at the level of kidneys, there is a large lobulated mass lesion with predominantly fat component, and it is surrounding the kidney anteriorly, laterally, and posteriorly. there is some free fluid, I think. Maybe either free fluid or partially distended bladder. Bowel loops are unremarkable. This is a fat density lesion with some soft tissue strands within it. So my first differential will be retroperitoneal liposarcoma. I would also like to see the chest sections in lung window because there are some pleural based nodular lesions. So this. Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, I'm hearing.
So I would discuss the case in oncology MDT, uro-oncology MDT, for consideration of biopsy for tissue diagnosis, and that is CT chest for staging. And this case will be managed by the oncology or oncosurgery team.
Okay.
30-year-old female with primary infertility.
Okay, I'm showing you so many MRIs, so I'll skip this. So this will be the last case. So this will be the last case. Next one.
Is my voice still very low?
No problem.
These are axial sections of Pontas canal CT abdomen. There is a large lobulated cystic lesions with some septations in the lower abdomen, extending up to the pelvis. I would like to correlate it to the history, whether it, and I would like to go through the images to determine the origin of the lesion. It is looks like a abdominal pelvic lesion. So this patient could be an ovarian cystic. So it is not rising from the pelvis. It is in mid-abdomen. Cystic lesion with some small enhancing nodules and septations within it. It is anterior to the aorta. So I would also like to do an ultrasound, just confirm the cystic nature of the lesion. An ultrasound guided.
What extra thing you will get if by doing the ultrasound?
We can, if possible, we can do a diagnostic aspiration of its fluid for cytology. We look for the nature of the lesion. There is no fat component in this, no fat or calcification. But there are some small solid nodules in it, so suspicious.
Okay, we'll stop here, Nikhil. We'll stop here. Okay. So you are describing this lesion continuously. You are not going to any direction. You are moving directionless here. So actually, first and primarily, you have to find out what is the epicenter of the lesion. So you can see there is a cystic lesion here in the similar density here, and this is the uterus, and that is the adnexa, like right adnexa that is extending, and that's a lesion. That is a right adnexa lesion that is extending to abdomen. That is a multicystic lesion. So you have to first you describe the lesion, then you arrive at a diagnosis or a differential diagnosis, then go to management. Like that you go. Like you can say that it can be a epithelial ovarian neoplasm like serous cystadenoma, considering the age and the appearance. And then you can tell like what will you do, and you have if the patient is acutely presenting, then this can be, it's a displaced lesion. It can be or tortured torsion is a possibility. You have to correlate with the clinical history, and this history was acute abdominal pain, and it was bilateral complex adnexal lesions. Like in this age group, it can be serous cystadenocarcinoma also, rather than cystadenoma. So you have to refer it for gynecology or gynec-oncology, MDT, and further discussion and like that. Okay. So what additional thing you will get by doing an ultrasound now? I don't know. But like, will you do an ultrasound aspiration for this? I don't know.
Maybe
I haven't heard that.
the CT findings are convincing, then I don't think we need an ultrasound.
Oh yeah, actually that's why. I don't know. Okay. And this one we skipped. And abdominal mass and weight loss. So this one you did well. Like it was a fatty density lesion with soft tissue density in the retroperitoneum. It's a large retroperitoneal mass. Mainly it is composed of fat, but there are also several soft tissue components. So, and it is displacing the right kidney anteriorly, and that was liver and bowel are displaced anteromedially, and you correctly spotted multiple pleural based metastasis and all. So it's a retroperitoneal liposarcoma. Again, you have to refer it for oncology, MDT, or sarcoma team and all. Finish it fast. And 3-month history of abdominal discomfort and distension, recent history. This one we discussed. I don't know. Yeah, actually here it's correct. Clearly, it's arising from the urinary bladder wall. You can see it in the sagittal image. Like it's arising from the urinary bladder wall, and that is extending into the urinary bladder and outside. And it's a heterogeneous, large, aggressive mass arising on the bladder with T2 hyperintendent signal, and there is a contrast enhancement. And in the fat suppressed images, it is not that much suppression. And it was proven to be a bladder rhabdomyosarcoma. Just if you can say that it's an aggressive lesion from urinary bladder, and you can give differential. Definitely, sarcoma is a possibility. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.